I'm going to read an excerpt from our book, Sigrid Rides. This is from chapter 3. It felt like we were back to square one, but as Bianca and I were regrouping outside of our block, we heard a sudden shout. An elderly neighbor was making her way down the street. "Hello, hello!" She had her hand raised up, trying to catch our attention. "You're the young man with the white cat, aren't you?" she called as she got closer. "Yes," I replied, searching her eyes for any hopeful sign. A smile broke from the corner of her mouth. "It's right there," she laughed, pointing upwards at a tree facing our row a few houses down. The woman had seen us crawling up and down the pavement and put two and two together. I fixed my eyes on the tree and slowly worked my way up its trunk, then its branches. I raised my head further. Around 70 feet up, balancing precariously between the trunk and a large branch, was Siggy, fur so messed up that she looked like a cross between Albert Einstein and a sheepskin rug. She sat deadly still and staring at us. "Thank God," I said, before thanking the woman repeatedly. But when I turned to Bianca, she was giggling nervously. "Great, but how the hell do we get her down?" she asked. I had no idea. Stage 2 of Operation Siggy was about to commence. By now, my coworkers were demanding updates. "Found," I posted on the Slack channel. I suspected some colleagues found it sweet that we were so worried. In a land where cats roam free, why worry about one stuck up a tree? But there were lots of laughter emojis sent to me too. I even got my telescope out and attached my phone camera to it so I could get a close-up shot that I could post. Siggy did not look amused by my paparazzi impression. My guess was that either the Ginger Tom had raced up first but managed to find its way back down, or maybe a more likely explanation was that Siggy had lost interest and got distracted by a squirrel sprinting up the oak tree. "Let's go in and wait by the window until she makes it down," I suggested. Where Siggy was positioned was far too high for me to climb. Besides, at some point she'd get cold or hungry, I figured. It was bitter, overcast, and damp, and I didn't want to be outside, but Bianca wasn't listening to that. "She's alone, we have to stay with her," she demanded. The problem is, the depths of British winter mean nothing to a Norwegian forest cat. Beneath her glossy overcoat, Siggy is insulated with a woolly undercoat, perfectly adapted for sub-zero temperatures. We could be out there for the long haul. Okay, I replied, but I was going to need extra layers, and if we were out there for the duration, we were going to have to devise some way of coaxing her down. Minutes later, I appeared with some dry treats in a plastic container, which I shook at her. "Hey Sig, you must be hungry, huh?" She glanced down dismissively. She could not have looked less interested. The winds of the last few days had eased off, so there was nothing budging her, and there was great bird watching to be done from up there. Plus, she would have had spectacular views across the city. Nearby Primrose Hill is one of the best spots to enjoy London's awesome skyline. From that vantage point, you can see landmarks like the BT Tower, the London Eye, the Shard, and the skyscrapers of London's financial district rising majestically from the trees. A couple of hours passed by. By now, I was bouncing between urgent work emails and checking back on Siggy. Bianca was camped out on the steps, shivering, but still refusing to come inside. Then at around midday, we looked up. One spot first, then a couple more flecks, then a smattering of rain. I smiled. If there's one thing Siggy hates, it's rain. Still perched between the branches, her ears were now pointed bolt upright, and she was shaking her head frantically. Every meow became louder and deeper. It's only a matter of time now, I thought. Sure enough, as the drops got heavier, Siggy became restless, wriggling around on the branch and attempting to back herself out. Then we watched in astonishment as she skillfully made her way across one branch as if she were a high-wire circus act. One paw stepped cautiously in front of the other, careful to get the balance spot on. From there, she continued onto a branch of an adjacent oak, but sadly, the flawless performance ended there. From then on, her descent became one of the clumsiest maneuvers I'd ever seen. With her muscular body and thick, sharp claws, Norwegian forest cats are fantastic at climbing, but not so clever at coming down. Around halfway, she gripped the bark, trying to cling on. And at around 10 feet from the ground, it was obvious she was losing grip. "Hang on, Sig," I shouted, running to catch her, but when she took a final tumble, my outstretched arms weren't best positioned to carry her full weight. She rolled from my hands and crashed down untidily in a rain-soaked bush, flipping over like a stunt car. "Hey, Siggy, you okay?" I said, quickly scooping her out. She was clearly rattled by the whole experience, so I held her to my chest and gave her the biggest cuddle ever. She was covered in mud, and small broken branches were matted in her fur. When we took her inside, we warmed her with blankets in the kitchen before gently washing her in warm water, and afterwards, it was the only time we let her curl up on her bed. She passed out so quickly and twitched in the deepest sleep as Bianca and I lay on either side of her, stroking her to keep her calm. I imagine she was still thinking about that Ginger Tom and how he got away. A couple days later at work, Siggy even made the headlines in the weekly all-staff meeting. A colleague had mocked up a slide with two pictures I'd posted on the Slack channel, one of Siggy up the tree and another of her in our kitchen looking stunned and disheveled. Underneath, she'd written the words, "Catastrophe averted, Department of Feline Rescue, Travis saved his cat." When I looked around, everyone's faces were glued to the large screen, and the room erupted with laughter. As it did, a warm, satisfied feeling spread through me. For the first time in a very long time, I realized I felt part of a team, part of something good. So there you go. There's a little excerpt from our book. And if you'd like to read our book and you haven't yet, head over to our shop and grab an autographed copy if you would like. You can also get it in most large bookstores around the world. Yeah, thank you. All right, Sig. That's it. You're done.